Some voices are never heard until the fight for justice makes them impossible to ignore. Today we honor a story that demands to be told. The town of Brooksville, nestled in the heart of Vermont, was the kind of place where everyone knew your name, where time seemed to move just a little slower, and where the mornings smelled like freshly baked bread. In Brooksville, life was peaceful. It was the kind of town where families stayed for generations, and the streets were lined with houses that had seen decades of laughter, love, and loss. Don't forget to like and subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means a lot. The phone call came just after 9 p.m. Carol Brooks had been sitting on the couch, her tired eyes fixed on the flickering television screen, the quiet hum of the evening wrapping around her like an old, familiar blanket. Her son Tyler had texted her just an hour before. He was finishing his shift at the auto shop, a regular day for him. She had smiled at the message, a simple, "Good night, Mom. Love you." That was as routine as any other. But the phone call, this phone call, would change everything. It would turn her life upside down in the most unimaginable way. "Ms. Brooks?" The voice on the other end was steady but carried an undercurrent of something Carol couldn't quite place. "This is Officer Carter with the Brooksville Police Department. Is now a good time?" Carol felt a chill run down her spine, and for reasons she couldn't explain, her breath caught in her throat. "What's wrong?" Her voice was already a whisper, even though she hadn't yet realized why she was whispering. "There's been an incident," Officer Carter continued. "We found your son's truck near the intersection of Main Street and Pine. It's been left there for several hours. We've checked. There are no signs of him around the area. Ms. Brooks, we're concerned. We need you to come down here." The world seemed to stop. "Tyler's truck is there? What happened? Where is he?" Carol's voice was trembling now, the warmth of the evening seeping out of her. Her stomach twisted into knots, her pulse quickening with each passing second. "Please, just come to the station," Officer Carter said, his voice more urgent now. "We need to speak with you in person." Before she even realized what was happening, Carol had grabbed her jacket, her hands shaking so badly she could barely get it on. Her mind raced as she pulled the keys from the hook by the door. Tyler had never been gone this long without checking in. He had never been late without calling. Where was he? Why wasn't he answering his phone? By the time Carol arrived at the police station, the night had deepened, the streets of Brooksville quiet, as if the town itself was holding its breath. Inside the station, she was led to a small room where two officers waited for her. She barely noticed the sterile surroundings, her mind consumed with worry and fear. "Ms. Brooks, please sit down," Officer Carter said, motioning to the chair across from him. "We don't have all the answers yet, but we need to talk to you." Carol's eyes were wild with anxiety as she took the seat, her hands tightly gripping the sides of the chair. "What happened to my son?" she demanded. "Where is Tyler?" The officers exchanged a glance, but neither spoke at first. Officer Carter took a deep breath and then spoke, his voice low and cautious. "We don't know, Ms. Brooks, but we're doing everything we can. We've been searching the area around his truck. His phone's been turned off and we haven't found any signs of struggle. The truck was just left there as though it was abandoned. We've checked the streets, but there's no sign of Tyler." A sense of dread settled over Carol like a cold fog. This wasn't right. Tyler never disappeared without a word. He had his flaws, but he always stayed in touch. Always. Why wouldn't he come home? Why wouldn't he call? Carol asked, more to herself than anyone else. The fear clawed at her, her heart sinking lower and lower with each passing second. "We don't know yet," Officer Carter said gently. "But we'll find him. We're contacting all nearby stations and we've already put out an APB. We'll keep you updated as soon as we have more information." Carol nodded numbly, but inside, a sickening feeling was starting to take root. This wasn't just a missed appointment. This wasn't just a late night. Something was terribly wrong. "Please," she whispered, looking up at the officer, her voice breaking. "Please find my son." The next 24 hours were agonizing. Carol spent the night pacing the house, phone in hand, trying to reach Tyler, trying to reach anyone who could help. She called friends of Tyler's, the local diner, the gas station, anywhere he could have gone. No one had seen him. No one had heard from him. By morning, the police had expanded the search. Dogs were brought in to track his scent around the area where his truck had been found. They canvassed local neighborhoods, asking anyone who might have seen Tyler. But still there was nothing. Carol's exhaustion weighed heavily on her. Every time the phone rang, her heart would leap into her throat. Every knock on the door felt like it might be the news she had been dreading. She couldn't stop herself from asking, "What happened to my boy? It wasn't until the next evening that the police finally caught a break. A local fisherman, while out by the river, found something that would send the investigation in a whole new direction. He had been walking along the banks when he noticed something strange. A jacket caught on a tree branch, half submerged in the shallow water. The jacket was unmistakable. It was Tyler's. The police arrived at the scene quickly, and the jacket was recovered. There were no signs of Tyler's body nearby, but there was something else. His phone, lying on the riverbank, still switched off just a few feet from the jacket. The officers quickly began to analyze the area, looking for any other clues that might explain what had happened. Tyler had been here, that much was clear. But where was he now? Carol's world crashed down again when the detective called her that night. Her hands shook as she picked up the phone, her mind spinning with dread. "Ms. Brooks, I need to speak with you. We found something. We think it might be related to your son." "What is it? What did you find?" Carol asked urgently, barely able to get the words out. "It's not easy to explain over the phone," Detective Sarah Reynolds said. "We need you to come to the..." When Carol arrived at the police station, her mind was a blur. She was led into a back room where Detective Reynolds was waiting. The officer's face was somber, and her eyes looked tired, worn. "Carol," Detective Reynolds said softly, "I'm afraid we've uncovered something troubling. We've traced the phone records. There's been communication between Tyler's phone and a number we've been investigating for a while now. The phone number belongs to someone with ties to a group we've been trying to infiltrate. We believe they're involved in a larger criminal operation." "Who?" Carol asked, her voice trembling. "What kind of operation?" "We think it's connected to a human trafficking ring," the detective said. "Tyler may have been targeted by these people, and we're still piecing everything together. We don't know why Tyler was taken, but it's clear that he was chosen." Carol's knees nearly gave way. The room felt like it was closing in on her. Her son, the boy she had raised, had been targeted for something far darker than she had ever imagined. She thought of the late-night phone calls he had received, the random men he had mentioned, a person in his life that Carol hadn't thought twice about. Was it all connected? "I need to find him," Carol whispered, her voice cracking. "Please, I need to know where he is. I can't lose him. Not like this." The investigation grew more intense with each passing hour. The police worked around the clock, following every lead. The number that had been linked to Tyler's phone led them to a location in the outskirts of Chicago, and they began preparing to move in. Carol stayed by the phone, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. But as the hours ticked by, she found herself questioning everything. Why Tyler? Why had he been chosen? And who was behind this? Who was responsible for the nightmare her family was now living? It wasn't until the next morning that the breakthrough came. But it wasn't what Carol had hoped for. "Carol," Detective Reynolds called, her voice shaky. "We need you to come to the station. We found something, and we think it's Tyler." Carol rushed to the station, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know what to expect, but when she saw the faces of the officers, grim and exhausted, she knew that something had gone wrong. The words that came from Detective Reynolds' mouth sent a chill down Carol's spine. "They found Tyler, but it's not good. Carol, he's been taken again." Don't forget to like and subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means a lot. The room was cold. It was early morning when Carol arrived at the police station, the gray light of dawn spilling through the windows and casting long shadows across the empty hallway. Every part of her body screamed for rest, but the weight of the situation, the waiting, the not knowing, was like a stone lodged in her chest. She had been holding it together for days. Holding it together for Tyler, her only son, and for herself. But each second that ticked by felt heavier than the last. The silence in her house, the absence of Tyler's laugh, the stillness where his energy once filled the air, haunted her every waking moment. Tyler was still missing. She had no answers, no new leads. The investigation, while progressing, had become more complicated, more tangled than anyone could have imagined. The call had come just hours ago. It had been Detective Sarah Reynolds. The police had finally tracked down the second phone number tied to the trafficking ring. This new lead led them to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. But when they arrived, it was clear they had come too late. Tyler had been taken again. Carol's footsteps echoed through the police station as she walked toward the back office where Sarah and the team were waiting. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, her thoughts swirling. This time, she wasn't going to sit idly by. She couldn't. Tyler had been kidnapped. Taken by a ring of criminals who saw him as nothing more than a pawn in a much larger game. But Tyler wasn't just anyone. He was her son, her flesh and blood. Carol had fought too long to give up now. When Carol entered the room, Sarah stood up immediately. The look in her eyes told Carol everything she needed to know. This wasn't just about Tyler anymore. The web they had uncovered was far darker and deeper than either of them had imagined. "Carol," Sarah said softly, her voice heavy with frustration and exhaustion, "we found the warehouse. But by the time we got there, it was too late. Tyler's gone. They took him again. We're not sure where they've moved him, but we know they're still in the city." The words landed with a sickening thud in Carol's chest. She blinked hard as though trying to clear the fog in her mind. "But we have a new lead," Sarah continued, a flicker of something like hope in her eyes. "A name." Carol felt her pulse quicken. "A name?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes," Sarah said, leaning forward, her hands clasped in front of her. "We traced the phone calls to a man named Victor Langston. He's the CEO of a company, Langston Industries. The company has connections to human trafficking networks operating across the country. We're still trying to uncover all of Langston's ties, but it looks like he's been pulling the strings all along." Carol's world seemed to collapse inward. Victor Langston. The name sounded so foreign, so unremarkable, yet somehow, it had become the linchpin of everything that had happened. "Where is he?" Carol's voice cracked as she leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table. "I need to find him. I need to find Tyler." "We're working on it," Sarah replied. "But we don't know where Langston is hiding yet. We've been tracking his financial transactions and connections, but every time we get close, he disappears into the shadows." Hours turned into days as the search continued. Carol refused to stay still. She pored over the files Sarah had given her, researching every possible lead she could find. She contacted friends, neighbors, and even some of Tyler's old co-workers, hoping for any scrap of information that might point to his location. The weight of her grief was unbearable, but Carol held it at bay, pushing through the pain. Every morning, she forced herself to wake up and keep going. For Tyler. She couldn't stop now. She couldn't lose him again. Then, on the fourth day, the phone call came. "Carol," Sarah's voice was tight with urgency. "We found Langston. He's at a penthouse downtown. We've got a team ready to move in, but we need you to be prepared. It could get dangerous." The words hit Carol like a thunderclap. She barely had time to process them before Sarah added, "We've found Tyler's location. He's alive, but, Carol, I need you to be strong. We don't know what condition he's in." "Where?" Carol demanded, her throat tightening. "Where is he?" "He's at the penthouse with Langston," Sarah said. "We think they're keeping him there." Carol arrived at the penthouse building with a heart pounding in her chest, her hands clammy as she clutched the seatbelt, her knuckles white. This was it. This was the moment she had been praying for, dreading, and preparing for. The penthouse stood tall against the night sky, bathed in the cold light of the city. The building felt impenetrable. Its glass windows, sleek design, and security guards stood as a stark contrast to the desperation Carol felt in her chest. But she didn't care. She was done with waiting. Done with uncertainty. Her son was in that building and she was going to bring him home. Inside, the team was already in position. The SWAT unit had been deployed and FBI agents surrounded the building, ensuring that no one could escape. Carol watched as Sarah communicated with the team, coordinating the final steps of the operation. "Stay with me," Sarah whispered, her face set in determination. "We're almost there." Carol nodded, her entire being focused on one goal, Tyler. She couldn't imagine what he had endured over the last few days. The thought of him scared, alone, and hurting in some dark corner of that building sent waves of nausea through her stomach. But she had to be strong, for him. The door to the penthouse burst open. Armed officers moved in quickly, securing the area. The lights inside the penthouse flickered and Carol's heart raced. She could hear the sound of shouting and movement, but it was unclear whether they were getting closer to Langston or just running out of time. "Move fast," Sarah said, pulling Carol along as they navigated the hallways of the luxurious penthouse. Carol's breath came in sharp gasps, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Then they found him. There, in the corner of the room, shackled to a chair, was Tyler. His face was pale, his eyes swollen from exhaustion, but when he saw Carol, a flicker of recognition, of love, passed between them. He tried to move, but the chains held him down. "Mom?" Tyler's voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. "Mom, I knew you'd come." Carol rushed to him, her hands trembling as she unlocked the chains. The moment his hands were free, Tyler collapsed into her arms, his sobs muffled against her chest. "You're safe now," Carol whispered, holding him as tightly as she could. I'm here, baby." Tyler pulled back, his eyes filled with both relief and sorrow. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I never should have gotten mixed up in this. I never meant to drag you into it." Carol shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "No, baby. You didn't drag me into anything. You're my son and I will always fight for you. Always." The police had apprehended Victor Langston, who had been found hiding in another room. His expression was cold, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and defeat. But Carol wasn't looking at him anymore. She was focused on the son in her arms, the boy she had fought so hard to get back. Langston was arrested, his empire crumbling before him. The trafficking ring he had once controlled was dismantled, and many of his associates were taken into custody. Carol had seen to it that justice would be served. No one would ever forget what happened to Tyler. But more than that, Carol's victory wasn't just about the criminals who were caught, it was about Tyler's survival. About her relentless pursuit of the truth, no matter how dark it got. About never giving up, even when the odds were stacked against her. Days later, as Tyler sat on the porch with Carol, the sun setting behind them, they shared a quiet moment of peace. Tyler had a long road ahead of him, one filled with healing and recovery, but he was home. And that was all that mattered. "I never thought this day would come," Tyler said softly, looking out over the horizon. "I never thought I'd be free." "You are," Carol replied, her voice thick with emotion. "And no one is ever taking you away from me again." Tyler looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I'm sorry I made you go through all of this. You shouldn't have had to fight this hard." "You're my son," Carol said, her voice firm. "I'd do it all again. Every single moment. Because you're worth it." The road to recovery wouldn't be easy. There would be therapy, healing, and a lot of difficult moments. But as Tyler sat by his mother's side, alive and free, he knew one thing for sure. He had a mother who would never give up on him. And that was all he needed to know. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more true crime content, where truth refuses to stay buried, and justice always finds a way. Like and comment below with your thoughts. Your support means a lot. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching.